Hi, my name is Louis Fleming. Today I want to talk to you about what's possible in personal development. I want to give you a vision for if we stick on this path, what we can accomplish. First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to search up a video like this. I have a lot of respect for people who have committed their spare time to growing themselves, because do we feel happier, do we feel better as a person when we're growing, when we change out of old habits we don't like so much and become more of the person we want to be? Yes or no? Yes, we definitely feel happier. And are people around us influenced by the fact that we change? Are they inspired to step up themselves? Yes or no? They totally are. So when you make a commitment to growing yourself, you're not only helping yourself but people around you. So good on you for spending your spare time searching for a video like this. So let's cut into the meat of this and look at what is possible in personal development. I'm going to start by talking about a psychologist called Abraham Maslow. He's pretty much one of the pioneers of positive psychology, which is studying what's possible for people, how we can become happier and more successful. He laid out what he called a hierarchy of human needs, which if you've ever done introductory psychology, you'll know him from that. And in that he thought, what motivates people? What is it that juices people up? What gets them going? Because in traditional psychology, the only motivation psychology there was of understanding why people do what they do was how to get from discomfort to comfort, how to get out of pain. But Abraham Maslow went, no, we're not that simple as human beings, are we? We have so much more motivation and drive than just getting out of pain and into comfort, right? We have this potential to be motivated to not just stop being uncomfortable, but to create an extraordinary life, to grow and to evolve and to become happier. So he thought about this and made his own model of human motivation, and it's great to understand as a human being in order to look at why we're doing the things we can do and what we can do to start to live better lives. So at the bottom of the pyramid, of his motivational pyramid, because it goes up bit by bit by bit, there's really obvious stuff. Of course, we're motivated firstly by survival needs, by food, air and water. Like if you're in the desert struggling on your own and you don't have enough water to survive, of course you're not going to be thinking about something higher up the pyramid of needs. You're going to be thinking about water. You're not going to be like, I don't know if my career's right for me. You're just going to be like, I'm thirsty, I'm dying, I need to find water. Alright, so once we meet those needs fade away, and the needs to be in a safe environment emerge. So obviously you don't want to be in a war-torn country, you don't want to be in a horrible situation in the third world, you want to be living in a safe neighborhood. I bet most of us watching the video have that need set. So that need disappears. We no longer think about our safety, we no longer think about our survival needs. What comes next? Next is the need for connection with other people, relationships, and have mutual respect going, and just people that you can confide in. Above that is self-esteem needs. Now I'd argue that Abraham Maslow got this the wrong way around, which I'll talk about more in future videos. But ultimately I think you want to manage your self-esteem before you get into managing getting better relationships into your life, because if you leave your relationships or start new ones, you're always taking you with you. And self-esteem is how happy and comfortable we are with ourselves as a human. How much do we like ourselves? If we don't love ourselves, we can't love other people. So I don't want to get into that too much here, but that'll be something I'll shoot future videos on, is self-esteem. And it's an awesome way to grow into the top level need, because as we reach each need, that fades away and gives us a drive to go up the pyramid to the next one. And when we reach a high level of self-esteem, it's a continuum and almost all of us can get higher, then more and more naturally the self-actualization need comes about. And this is at the top of the pyramid, self-actualization. What does self-actualization mean? It means what we can be, we must be. So as individuals, deep inside of us, we may not know it, or we may know it, but there's a purpose, a reason we're on this earth. And our job is to give voice to that purpose. Painters have to paint and nurture that talent. Musicians have to make music. Writers have to write. If you're naturally wanting to be a hugely successful athlete, you must follow that. If you want to be an Olympic athlete, you must at least train and be athletic. If you want to be a great speaker, you must go out and speak. Whatever our drive is deep down, our job is to discover what makes us happy and give voice to that. Abraham Maslow sums this up as what we can be, we must be. And the interesting thing is he says this isn't a nice to have or a luxury that only the people who have the opportunity to chase their passion and are financially independent enough to do what they love. It's not something that only they get to enjoy. It's actually a human need. So he compares it to a vitamin need. It's fine to not think about it too much, and it naturally just becomes part of the background noise if you're following your goals, following your passion, if you're enjoying life by pushing yourself into doing the things you enjoy. But when you're deficient in it, just like a vitamin, your body will start to notice. And it's like depression, anxiety, disillusionment, lack of energy, all of the bad emotions and suffering come from being further and further away from what we really want to be doing. So how do we start doing more of what we want to be doing? How do we start being better and honoring this self-actualization drive? Well, Abraham Maslow talks about it like this. Each moment there's an opportunity to step backwards into safety or forwards into growth. So day by day we get many choices where we can decide to grow ourselves, to do something which scares us, puts ourselves outside of the comfort zone and become better. Or we can just rest in the comfort zone. And he says each time we decide to rest in the comfort zone, each moment we have this choice, we get what he calls a step back into safety. And each time we decide to step forward into growth, we get to grow, become more and more excited by that. It fuels that passion and that need for self-actualization, and we become happy. So human happiness, one really simple way of looking at it overall, is just happiness comes from growth. The more we can grow, the happier we are. The more that we decide to step back into safety, the less happy we are. If we're constantly stepping forward into growth and becoming the highest version of ourselves, there's no chance for that depression and anxiety and all of that to come up, because we're so busy on our path, on our purpose, doing what we love. So that's ultimately where you want to be. But why aren't we doing this then? Why are so few of us becoming more and more self-actualized if it's the path you want to go down to be happy? Well, it's scary. It's a scary thing to do, because the safe option is always there, and it's safe. It feels good in the moment. It's nice to go back into safety and just relax and veg out. But it doesn't make us happy. And I'm sure you aren't that convinced of this now, that it doesn't make us happy. So later on I want to talk about where this choice to step back into safety or step forward into growth takes you. If it is done over and over again, the step backwards into safety, you'll have a comfortable life. And if you step forward and forward into growth, you'll have a charged life, as Brendan Burchard would call it. And we're going to talk about the consequences of that. But firstly, I'm sure you know that it's good to grow, but why do so few of us do it? Alright, camera ran out of data, so we have to carry on from here. But why do so few of us choose to go forward into growth? Why are we so often choosing to go backwards into safety? The answer is fear. The safe option's always there. The safe option feels good in the moment. When we choose the option for growth, we feel stressed out. It's hard to do, even though when we get that rhythm, we love it. I mean, most people don't realize that the most amazing feeling in life is the feeling of progress and growth and training yourself to be better and better, because we never get that initial momentum to actually feel what that's like. And the reason that is because of the distress that comes with stepping forwards into growth. But it's not so much distress the whole way. What I want to talk to you about now is we have two types of stress. First, we've got distress, then we've got eustress. Distress, what's distress? Distress is being like, oh my god, I've got so many things to do, I don't know how I'm going to get them done on time, I have to pick the kids up from school, oh no, I'm going to be late for that. We all know distress so well. Whereas eustress is the stress that comes from being on a roller coaster ride and it feels awesome, or you're going rock climbing, or you're really pushing yourself at a project on work that you're loving and it feels great. It's a combination of the words stress and euphoria. Eustress. Now, when we're faced with this choice to choose to go backwards into safety or forwards into growth, moment to moment to moment, the reason safety is tempting is because forwards into growth starts with distress. Backwards into safety has very little distress. But when we do it for a long time, and we keep going back into safety, our life builds more and more distress as we aren't managing the things we're meant to be managing, we aren't living the kind of life we're meant to be living. And even when we're relaxing and vegging out on the TV, there's part of us that feels guilty because our higher self, as New Agey people would call it, but you know, the part of us that wants to grow and be better knows that this isn't the best use of our time. So we always feel a little bit distressed in safety, but a bit less than if we choose to grow. If we grow, it's inherently distressing. But if we keep at it and we keep deciding to grow, it becomes eustress. The stress quickly becomes euphoric stress. The more and more we get into it, the more and more juiced up we get about it. As we get better and better at the skill, passion builds up and up. As we build more and more momentum, passion builds up and up. Passion partly comes from being good at something. So when we get through those initial stages of lack of momentum and so on and start being better and better at it, become more and more passionate, we want to do it more, we're doing it more and more. It's an upward spiral that feels amazing. So the distress quickly becomes eustress. But most people never beat at it that far. So beat at it that far. It's totally worth it. And now the final thing I want to talk about is if we do go backwards into safety all the time and choose to veg out in front of the TV or just play video games or go watch movies or have barbecues with our friends and we're not growing, we're not challenging ourselves, what kind of life that leads to? This comfortable life most people tend to think of as the life that'll make us happy. But the truth is there's only so many movies you can watch. There's only so many cocktails on the drink you could drink. Beach you could drink. I mean, our society makes us think that if we could just get enough money to be comfortable, if we just get enough money to not work again, if we just get enough money to have unlimited leisure time, then we'll feel good. I mean, the 4-Hour Workweek book is a huge bestseller because people buy into this idea of wanting to just live a comfortable life. The alternative is that we live a charged life. Because when we live a comfortable life and we have nothing we're pushing ourselves to do, nothing we're growing into and becoming, nothing exciting to be living, our life feels really mediocre and life feels quite meaningless. But when we're really on our edge and we're growing all the time and we're becoming the person we want to become, that's where happiness comes from. And I'm sure you might not believe this at this stage. So what I'm going to get you to do is we want to do an exercise where you list your 6 proudest moments. This is an exercise I got from a guy who has a YouTube channel called actualize.org, which is amazing, you should check it out sometime. But what you do is you write down your 6 proudest moments. If you think back and what your best times were for yourself, the things you're most proud of doing, you'll realize they're actually quite hard. I mean, if you rate them next from 1 to 10, then you'll realize that you had to put a lot of struggle into getting those things you're really proud of. But if you didn't have them, your life wouldn't be the same. If I think about my own life, for most of it I lived the comfortable life all the time. I didn't have that many friends, I was bored and disinterested in school, I didn't have that many fun things I was doing or great hobbies. I just lived in a little bubble of comfort. And it was alright. Life was alright, it just didn't feel great, it just didn't have that juice to it. A few years ago I started deciding to really stop being so anxious because that was the reason I was staying in that zone of safety, was I was so anxious and fearful all of the time. And what ultimately did that for me was getting into outdoor pursuits. We did a canyoning trip. We were jumping off little waterfalls, sliding down rock waterfalls, scrambling our way down a canyon for Outdoor Red. And I remember being petrified. I was so scared. But the more and more I got into it, the more and more I started really feeling alive, and it was that feeling I never got in any other ways. And right at the end they had this big waterfall. It was this 8-meter waterfall, and the teacher's like, you can jump off this 8-meter waterfall into the pond below. I'm like, no way I'm doing that, you've got to be kidding. And then he's like, or we can go 4 meters higher onto that cliff up there and jump into the same pond where the waterfall is. I'm like, oh my god. And he's like, yeah, walk up there if you want. Should we go up there instead? Let's jump at the 12-meter cliff. And we got up there, and I was like, I've always lived my life in anxiety and fear. I'm going to do this just to prove it to myself that I can push outside of my comfort zone and do something exciting, because my life has been crap up to this point and I've had enough. So I walked up to that edge, but the closer I got and the more my legs started to tremble, and I was looking down at this 12-meter drop, and I was like, I can't do this. What happens? There's rocks all the way out at the edge of the waterfall pool. What if I don't jump and I just kind of fall down the cliff and I hit the cliff down below? What if the water's not deep enough? And I asked all of these questions in my mind as I got closer and closer, and I really didn't feel like doing it. And at one point I just went, stop. Enough. And I decided to ask a different question for some reason. I don't even know why. But at that moment I went, are any of these fears real? And I'm freaking out about the depth of the pool, about whether I'm going to hit rocks. Is any of it real? And then all of a sudden my mind just answered no. The rocks are so far away that I couldn't jump into them if I jumped as far as I ever have in my life. I'm not going to just fall down the cliff. I'm actually going to jump out naturally. Like, it would be impossible just to kind of not jump at all and just fall. It is deep enough because like 20 other people in my class had jumped before me. So none of these fears were real. And that was a big realization for me, because as human beings we're descended from cavemen, so we naturally have all of these instincts designed to try and make us survive. We don't like heights because if we were chasing a cheetah in a hunt or something, or a deer in a hunt, we wouldn't be chasing a cheetah, but say we're chasing a cheetah in a hunt, a deer in a hunt, and we get to a cliff and we suddenly fall off, then we're dead. So it's wired into us not to like heights. But even more so little things like public speaking and so on, we find absolutely terrifying. The average person ranks public speaking as one of their highest fears, and there's this old joke which is kind of partly true, that at a funeral most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. It's pretty crazy. But things like public speaking are so terrifying to us because if we pissed off a new tribe member from another tribe when we're cavemen and you just hit us with a rock, we'd be dead. There are no laws against human, they could just do that, bang. So we have all these fears that now don't make sense in our comfy society. My camera's not built for this kind of length of video, but the trick to getting past those fears is ultimately realizing if they're real or not. You need to ask yourself, is this a real fear, or is this a fear that I can just cope with the distress, just go further and further into it until it becomes eustress. So that was a powerful realization that I made jumping off that cliff. The second realization jumping off that cliff that I made is our brain works in question answer thoughts. That's how our brain is. It's a question answer computer. So if you ask it a bad question like, oh my god, am I going to die right now? How could this go wrong? Oh my god, I'm going to hit the rocks there. Is the water deep enough? You're not going to jump off the cliff in that situation. But if I asked it, are any of these fears real? All of a sudden I got a better answer. Now you can use this in all kinds of scenarios. Like if you're wanting to diet and you ask, why am I so fat? Your brain will answer, because you eat way too much food, you're lazy, you sit around doing nothing. If you ask, how can I be healthier now? Your brain can start to come up with all the ways in which you could diet. If you ask, why am I so skinny? I don't like being so skinny, it's embarrassing. Your brain will just feed all these negative thoughts. But if you ask, how can I get bigger? How can I get stronger? You might start thinking I could go to the gym, put on some muscle. We can do this at work as well if we're feeling like, why am I so stupid? Why is this person so much smarter than me? We could be like, how could I start to be smarter? What can I learn from this person who seems smarter than me? So we want to change our question to get a different answer. If we want results, we've got to stop asking bad questions, start asking good ones. With your goals stated in the positive. When you're like, I'm not smart enough, you can be like, how can I be smarter? If you're like, I'm too fat, you're like, how can I be healthier? That instantly gives us so much more motivation, and our brain starts going, okay, this is what we can do to start doing that. So that's a powerful little tool as well I got from that adventure. But the most powerful thing is I'd broken down that fear zone of living in my comfort bubble. I was always super anxious growing up, and all of a sudden I was free to just be able to do what I wanted. I went on lots of rock climbing trips, I went on caving trips, we did heaps of tramping, I even went bungee jumping, and all of this was way too scary for me before I made this decision to push outside of my comfort zone and see what life was like on the other side. Now I'm able to do all this exciting stuff just because of that. And it'll be the same with work or with diet or whatever change you're wanting to make. If you're wanting to become more successful, if you're wanting to step forwards into growth in that area. Once you push past your comfort zone and you're living on your edge and you're becoming more self-actualized, you'll become much happier, you'll get much more momentum, and life will be so much better. So the exciting life is really what we want to live. That's what drives us as humans, that's what makes us feel good. Don't ignore this need for self-actualization. As Abraham Maslow puts it himself in his book, he says, if you plan on being less than you're capable of being, if you deliberately plan on being less than you're capable of being, you'll be unhappy for the rest of your life. It's depressing, but it's true. I'm warning you. You have to do what you're capable of being if you want to be happy. Ultimately, though, you're not going to do this. You're wanting to keep going back into safety, keep going back into comfort, unless you convince your brain that this exciting life is actually what you want. So do the exercise. Write down your 6 most exciting moments, 6 most proud moments. When in your life were you most proud? Write them down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then ask yourself how hard they were to accomplish out of 10. You'll find they were very hard. Really think about this. Think, what would happen if I hadn't done these things? What would my life be like then? I'm willing to bet that your life would be pretty bad if you didn't do these things. And you wouldn't want to do that because you got so much value out of these things. That'll start to convince your mind that you want to put pressure on yourself to grow. But I think about myself, I used to be so shy. I used to not even be able to say hi to my friends at primary school because I thought they'd bully me or laugh at me for some reason. I don't even know why. It was kind of crazy. But I decided to push myself, meet lots of new people. At high school I branched out a bit more with new friends, but I was still quite shy. And at university I went, nah, I'm moving to a different side of the country. I'm staying in a hall of residence with like 300 other people, and I'm just going to make an effort to meet everyone, go to as many social events as I can. There's a website called meetup.com. You can go to meetups, meet lots of new people. I desensitized myself again and again and again. And then one of my proudest moments was having a big group of friends in Dunedin, going flatting with these friends. I had more friends than I ever had in my entire life. It was great. It was fun. I'd pushed outside of my comfort zone there. So that was one of them. The second one was getting into the outdoors. I used to be too scared to jump off the little local wharf, and now I was able to jump with the big 12-meter cliff. I'm able to go whitewater rafting, mountain biking. Boom. It's super proud for me. Third proudest moment? What was my third proudest moment? Third proudest moment was spending 10 days on the Spirit of Adventure sailing, leaving behind the comforts of home and really pushing myself to get on the sailing boat. 6 a.m. each day in the middle of winter. We jumped off the boat to wake us up. We spent all day running around doing chores on the boat, manning the sails, exploring unexplored islands where people hadn't even settled, just sailing around. That was really cool, and also a very hard thing to do. Fourth, I was doing occupational therapy. I was studying that. Now I swapped to studying to be a life coach. At the time that was an incredibly challenging thing to do. I much would have rather stayed in the safe zone of doing occupational therapy, because when I left I had no idea what to do. I worked for a while. I tried joining a bunch of different courses. I spent half a year just figuring out what I was into. I couldn't do it, and then finally I found life coaching, and now I'm so much happier because I stepped outside of that zone. So all of these are rated really high. 2 more. One is being able to surf, it took me a long time to learn that. A lot of mucking around in the water, getting tossed around by waves, very hard thing to do. And then getting motivated. I used to hardly work. Now I'm able to work 14 or 16 hour days because I found something I'm so passionate about. I have so much energy, and just producing all those results and really helping people change their lives for the better has really been a big thing for me. And then finally, like, I love being healthy and having my nutrition sorted. So all of these things, my life would be so bland without them. And I'm willing to bet you have a similar list. So go through your list. Write out 6 things that you're very proud of. Out of 10, how hard they were for you to do. And then really think about, would I prefer to have just lived a comfy life, chosen the comfy option all these times? And really think about what would happen. This will show you that happiness comes from growth. You'll be more committed to pushing through that de-stress to the eustress, to feeling much better as a human being and just tapping into more of your potential. So yeah, don't ignore this need to self-actualize. It's like the need for water. Our soul gets so dehydrated that it's so thirsty for water that we feel like we're dying. I mean, if you watch people who are just living with unlimited comforts, watching TV all day, just drinking in the sun, they look like zombies. They're so like, oh, hi. There's no light in their eyes, there's no passion. So what you want to do is live that more exciting life. And I challenge you to do this exercise. If you do it, you will tap into more of your potential because you'll realize why you are doing it. Thank you. This is Louis. I'm signing off. Goodbye.